both at the same time.
Okay.
We're live right now. Sam, thanks for joining us at the Sports Biz podcast. How about that?
Awesome.
So this is our 2.0 version. We tried this about a week ago, and I think the second time is always going to be the better time, right?
It's also better in person.
Absolutely, and we get live shots of you. So let's talk about this. I want to take a little bit different direction. You're a career entrepreneur for the most part.
Totally.
Let's talk about where it all began. Like, what sparked it? Was it your, talk about your upbringing, where you're from.
Okay, yeah. And I'll tell you, what sparked it is basically having no clue. I just sort of wandered into entrepreneurship. It wasn't like, it was like this glorious big sign, that I saw displayed in front of me.
Right. Yeah, it never is there?
No, it's just kind of like, well, not so much. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this other thing. I guess I'll just figure it out. That kind of thing.
But you grew up in Manhattan.
Grew up in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Went to school on the Upper East Side. Went to Harvard actually for undergraduate in physics and chemistry. Got out of there early, and so I was young enough that I didn't know what to do with myself really. So I ended up going to medical school of all things.
Was it something that your parents pushed you to do?
They didn't have to push very hard because I really was clueless. Coming back to this idea of having no clue.
Yeah.
I wanted to do something interesting. I didn't know what. I kind of knew it wasn't medicine.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I really knew it wasn't law school. Like back then, people were doing like law school and business school and all that kind of, and I was just like, that's not me. I'm not doing that.
So let me become a doctor.
Well, it seemed like something to do. And that's the way I thought about it. I was like, this is a good way to figure out what I really want to do.
Right.
It was unlikely that I actually wanted to be a doctor, but I could see doing research stuff, medical research, man-machine interfaces. I was already thinking along these lines, and I was self-taught in computers. So when I was in college and actually in medical school, I taught myself assembly language programming. I'd already had been lucky enough that my high school had an IBM mini computer that they taught courses on. This is in the late 70s.
Wow.
I mean, nobody had access to computers then. I even had summer jobs programming IBM mainframes with punched cards.
Wow.
So I got to be exposed to all this stuff at a ridiculous age, and then when I got out of med school, I said, well, let me do something with all the programming stuff that I know, and so I ended up starting a consulting company. And that went pretty well.
Because you were ahead of the curve in the computer side, so you realized that a lot of people wanted to get in that space. You had knowledge in that space, so you created your own opportunity. You saw an opportunity.
Yeah. Back then, again, it's hard to rewind, but back then, computers were a really scarce resource. It wasn't like there was a whole culture. There was no WeWork.
Right.
There were no accelerators. There were no incubators.
Yeah.
There was none of this stuff, right? Now I get to benefit from all this. We were just in the Quake Accelerator.
Yeah.
We partnered with Expert Dojo on the West Coast. They have a fantastic accelerator. And so, but back, there was none of this infrastructure. So you sort of wandered out and found a few contracts and then figured out how to kind of make ends meet. Right. That's kind of what I did.
So this was late 70s, early 80s, right around that time?
When I did the consulting stuff, it was actually, mid 80s.
Mid 80s. Yeah. So while you're doing all this, to me, knowing your story, I look at the incubator, the original incubator was the Shazam party planner.
Oh, yeah.
I had to bring it back up again.
No, absolutely. Parties.
Yeah. So you're an Ivy League guy at Harvard. You're going to Columbia and to be a doctor, and you start a nightclub promotional business.
Yeah, well, again, we didn't think of it as a business. We just thought it was a great way to meet people. Right? Oh my God, these clubs would pay you to throw a party.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
It's the best.
We kind of stumbled into it, and my partner and I, Sasha, we were like Sam and Sasha.
Yeah.
And we did this thing. So. It just it kind of snowballed, and we were pretty good at it. So we ended up throwing pretty big parties at places like Area and Palladium.
Wow.
Thousands of people, lots of celebrities. It was like a whole, and it was our hobby.
That's a whole movie, Sam. That's a movie in and of itself.
Yeah, but absolutely. Madonna used to come. And,
wow.
And
you guys,
Basquiat was at a lot of the parties.
And you guys were college students at this time.
Well, no, we were med students.
You were medical
We were
students.
medical students, and then we were out till like 4 in the morning.
This is
throwing
beautiful.
parties.
This is
It was
beautiful.
messed up.
So this is beautiful, and that's a whole different podcast in and of itself,
Yes,
or an HBO special.
We digress.
We digress.
Right.
So the one thing that I'm always enamored with, and I use this as a rule of thumb, even when I own my own business, I loved hiring kids that were kids of immigrant parents. What's your parents' story? Were they entrepreneurs? Did they immigrate here to the United States, or?
Well, my dad is sort of an immigrant from Canada. I don't know if you call that real immigration.
That's sneaking over.
No,
Yeah.
it was legit.
Yeah.
And he actually met my wife in Boston. My mom in Boston.
Yeah.
His wife, and she was a second generation immigrant, and he was also a second generation immigrant, both from Eastern Europe. So they met in Boston, and the rest is history.
Were they entrepreneurs growing up?
No, they were both MDs actually. My dad was an MD, PhD.
Yeah.
They ended up doing entrepreneurial stuff. So my dad ended up starting a cancer diagnostic company, which has actually done pretty well, and also doing some really pioneering research in genomics. But basically they were a little bit entrepreneurial, enough that you could kind of see your way to like, okay, this could be an interesting lifestyle.
Were they supporting you in the beginning? I mean, were they
going to school?
Yeah.
Obviously. But once I got through school, it was pretty much self.
I mean, were they when you told them?
You mean supportive?
Yes, like when you're with your entrepreneurial spirit.
I think once I got the degree, their attitude was like, he's got the degree.
Right.
He can do whatever he wants, and
Right.
nothing too bad should happen.
Right.
So they were more, sort of. They provided moral support at that point, and I think they still thought I was a little crazy for not actually being a doctor.
Yeah.
But like when I was in med school, I won a research prize, for instance,
Yeah.
for the speech synthesizer that I built. And, it was clear that I knew a lot about computers, but computers were such a niche thing back then.
Right.
Like they weren't dominating huge swaths of the global economy like that.
Right.
There was no Google, there was no Amazon, there was no Apple, none of that. So computers were like a weird, geeky thing to want to do.
And where did you take that after that consulting business? What happened after that?
So I ended up starting a company that did parallel and distributed processing software. The idea was to basically rope in a lot of extra processors for simulating things like neural networks, which of course are the basis for AI today, but this is like 30 years ago.
Wow.
It was just crazy early. So the stuff that we were doing makes perfect sense in the rearview mirror.
It was the foundation of AI.
Well, I wouldn't call our work,
Yeah.
but that was the time when AI was just getting started. So a lot of the neural network kind of theory that's being used heavily in deep learning today was just being originated back then. And there were guys like Rummelhart and McClellan who were just first deciding how to implement multi-layer neural networks. And that's the basis for deep learning. But it took 30 years for those theories to be practical because the computing power to run them wasn't really available then. You could scrounge together a few processors, but each of those processors was like 1/1000th as fast as today's processors. And you're trying to do meaningful analysis of images and things, but you'd have like 30 pixels. It was like so crude, and it would take like 6 weeks to train it. So then you'd be, okay, well maybe we better figure out some way to speed this up. And so that's what my company did. We ended up kind of evolving into the photo space because photo imaging and rasterization need a lot of processing. And so we ended up building distributed and client server systems for the photo industry. And then I got this job at Avid in 2007, which kind of segued me over into the video space. And that went really well. I can talk more about that. But, yeah.
Let's talk about Axel now. Let's talk about what was that moment that you had that aha moment of, I think this is a product that's needed in the marketplace right now. You're kind of getting ahead of the curve where you see AI going, you see communication, distribution of video. So let's talk about that moment. How did it start?
Well, it was actually when I was at Avid. So I was there for 5 years, and I was in charge of what was then called Interplay. It's now called Media Central. So big, fancy software that manages video workflows for typically broadcasters. And we had a couple thousand of the world's best broadcasters as our customers, but we would keep meeting people from sports venues, from teams, from not-for-profits, and they had interesting stuff they were doing, but it wasn't big enough to justify $250,000 software investment. Plus, it was a different world. Like, they were winging it a little bit more. You know, it's more like podcasting. You've got some footage, you've got a hard drive, you're plugging things in, and so they were just kind of getting their act together. But there were thousands of these people, tens of thousands. In fact, today there's hundreds of thousands. And I saw that kind of building when I was at Avid, so I pitched the management team on doing something lighter weight and cheaper that would address this much faster growing market. And they basically shot me down and said, no, go back to, because the business we had, we tripled it in 5 years. We were growing pretty fast. And Avid, at that time, didn't have a lot of areas of growth. There were only 2 product lines that were growing at that kind of speed. They're like, you keep doing exactly what you're doing because it's working. Don't mess with it.
So for just an average sports fan, what would the technology, how would it translate to what they're watching?
Sure. So the way this stuff works is that when a broadcaster, or really anybody who's capturing video, grabs that video, it's just raw. It's like a 2-hour feed, and they might have a bunch of camera angles, and they might have, footage from the interviews before, interviews after. They've got to put all that together into a show. Or they've got to put it on the news, or they've got to put it on, like Bleacher Report is one of our customers. They're always grabbing snippets of material, highlights, commenting with it, posting it to the web. To take all that material, which is typically many hours of raw stuff, usually shot in very high resolution, like 4K or even 8K red, you have terabytes of material that you've got to whittle down to like a 10-second highlight clip. Oh, LeBron, nails it, whatever. Right. And so to cut down that footage and find the best parts takes analysis. Somebody's got to sit there and either log it manually,
right,
or, as is the case today, you can use artificial intelligence to analyze it and say, hey, that was a great dunk by LeBron. And then that information basically gets passed through to the people that are putting together the website so they can publish it a lot quicker. Otherwise, they're like, where was that dunk? I know it was in the first quarter.
So if you put in that we want to be able to cut up 15-second, 30-second spots of all LeBron's dunks.
Yeah.
This will do it without just through visual recognition rather than someone sitting there manually doing it. Is that correct?
Well, it's a combination of visual recognition,
yeah,
and also transcription, because if you've got a play-by-play, the announcer's going to say, LeBron! And you catch that, then you can just search for LeBron, and then you're going to find all the times that the announcer said LeBron.
So it's voice as well.
Voice and video. And you can also identify objects and logos. So for instance, all the times that a particular advertiser's logo appears. If that advertiser wants to make sure that they're in the highlight reel, there's several angles of that dunk.
That's brilliant.
You can catch the one where right behind it,
that's brilliant.
You can see the Ford logo.
So if I'm selling sponsorship, so if I'm on the media side and I'm selling the advertisement dollars and I'm guaranteeing X amount of impressions,
exactly,
this is a way to quantify that.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly right. So it has all kinds of uses. I mean, sports is one of the fastest growing,
yeah,
but we're also seeing stuff in churches where a lot of the larger churches now will use live feeds, and will also use recorded material. Universities, actually my alma mater is using our software. There's
I'll be charging double for that one.
Not too bad. But there's a bunch of universities, they're all doing lecture footage.
Yeah.
They're all using video to promote their campus, both for incoming students and for alumni trying to get donations.
Right.
So they're hey, look at this great new building we're building.
Right.
We need donations, what have you. And the list goes on, corporate video, training materials. Basically, video is blowing up, and it's already 3/4 of what's on the internet is video.
Right.
So over time, that's going to keep growing, but also just the sheer amount that's being acquired, because everybody's got an iPhone, everybody's got an Android phone, etc.
So for somebody, for scalability to YouTubers and content creators like myself, for instance,
yeah,
if I could take this feed and then identify little nuggets of information that I want on it, that be able to extrapolate a 10-second spot,
yep,
your software, if I put this video through your software, technically I'll be able to do that.
Yeah, and the cool part is, you don't have to trust it. You can scrub through and find the good parts yourself. So we still allow the human element.
Right.
It's just what the AI does is basically gives you the groundwork where like I know he said LeBron, and you know I just
Right.
or I know you know they were talking about tax hikes.
Right.
I want to search for tax hike, and you can find all the times in a press conference that somebody mentioned a tax hike. So we have politicians using our software, some pretty big ones actually on both sides of the political divide, using this for their presidential
research and
presidential campaigns.
Yeah.
Because they want, if they do a town hall meeting, for
Yeah.
instance, and somebody talks about healthcare, they want to be able to post that to social media that relates to healthcare policy, right? So again, they could try and remember when that got said, but after the 6th or 7th town hall meeting, it's all a blur. So you know, in almost every walk of life, if you're going to be using video, you're going to need a tool like this. Once the volumes get beyond what you can fit on a couple of hard drives.
right. So you're talking about not only efficiencies, but you're also talking about saving people time.
Exactly.
And the time is becoming more and more about, and people are recognizing that, like Uber is a time saver.
Absolutely. Yep.
So-
And by the way, it's also about the quality of the material you end up with.
Yeah.
Because if you can get the best angle, you know, not just, oh, I found one angle and we'll have to do, but I want to see all the angles of when so-and-so said this or did that. Then you're going to be able to pick the best ones, put together more polished pieces, you know, looks better, sells better.
So you have sports, you have politics, you have schools, universities. This is for anybody that's really creating content.
Exactly.
So it's scalable globally. How do you distribute it? And is it a membership subscription? Is it a licensed software what's your business model?
Yeah, it's licensed software. There's also a subscription part, which is the AI analysis segment. But you basically buy the software to get started. We will start offering a subscription version of the software next year. And we've also started doing bundles where actually if you buy certain advanced storage systems, you get a copy of the software with that. So it's a package deal, and you're like, I'm getting the storage to house all my videos, but instead of just letting it sit there, I'm going to make it smart storage by adding the software so that I can search it.
So I could go back and search it. So again, if I'm a YouTube creator and I said something 6 months ago and I'm bringing it up now, I want to be able to do a flashback. This allows me to go back and flashback quickly.
Exactly.
It's brilliant.
Hey.
So you're going to go after. So you have the big boys, right? So you're from a market share standpoint, you're going after the big boys, the big media companies. How does a content creator sitting at their bedroom in Brooklyn, how do they benefit from this? Is there going to be a product line as well? I know how they benefited from it, but is the product line going to be reasonably priced for them?
We're aiming that way.
Yeah.
So right now, the least expensive software that we have starts at about $1,000, and really to do it properly, you end up in the $2,000 or $3,000 range. That's more than the average YouTube creator is going to just spring for.
Right.
They might spring for it if they have shelves full of hard drives.
Right.
We do meet those people, but you know, I'd say the world is heading our way.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is come up with ways to do this as a monthly subscription,
Right.
or in the hundreds of dollars, because that's where people can really benefit from it. So if you had a subscription that was, say, tens of dollars a month, or you could buy the software for hundreds of dollars, that's a price point where, you know, I think a much wider group of people can benefit, and we're working towards that. We'll be able to announce hopefully some things next year.
Got it. I see this without a doubt being in the college athletic space, the higher education space, when they start aggregating all that content that's out there that's produced by several different departments under their umbrella. How do you, as the marketing department at Harvard, how do you grab all that information that's going out there and being able to share that across your channels? Sam, this is brilliant.
Yeah, and we already have like Madison Square Garden is one of our biggest customers, and you can easily see with the venues because they got so many events coming through, and they used to leave the video up to the leagues. It wasn't their problem, but then they realized, wait a minute, we got to put stuff up on the jumbotrons.
It's our content,
we got
yeah.
all these in-house screens that
Right.
we're using. We want to show highlights. We want to do all this stuff.
Right.
So it's become they've gone from like 4 in-house editors to 14 just in the last 6 months. That's the kind of boom that's happening, and they have hundreds of terabytes of material. And you know, most of us know about like a 1 or 2 terabyte hard drive. Just think about hundreds or even thousands, which is called a petabyte. So at Bleacher Report, they have a petabyte of material.
And that's all stored in the cloud.
No, it's actually stored in racks on premise, because that's the other thing about video. It's too big to upload to the cloud once you get into these kinds of volumes. You would need insane amounts of bandwidth and then really expensive storage once you got there. So 95% of it is actually on premise, not in the cloud. eventually it's going to get archived to the cloud. That's starting to happen.
Right.
And Amazon, for instance, just announcing really aggressive prices. We also partner with companies like Wasabi and Backblaze. So there's great stuff happening for cloud storage. But at this moment, it's 95% just on-premise, either in hard drives or in network storage right there. And that's where our software does its thing.
How do people get a hold of you?
My email is sam@axle.ai, and our website is www.axle.ai, AXLE.
This is going to be, I think within 6 months, you're going to hear more and more about what you're doing.